Right, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. I'm going to talk you through a project I led at Nissen Richards Studio from concept through to completion in 2020. Sutton Hoo, for those of you who don't know, is the site of an archaeological excavation that revealed one of the most important finds ever to be discovered in Britain. In 1939, what can only really be described as the fossil of a ship burial was revealed on the site. It's believed to be the final resting place of Anglo-Saxon King Radwold and was incredibly significant in shaping our present day understanding of British history. The site is owned by the National Trust and comprises of the burial site itself, which sits within a large rural estate. There's also a historic house where Edith Pretty, who commissioned the dig, formerly lived, and there's a series of buildings built at the turn of the millennium. The aim of the project was to elevate the site's status to one akin to a World Heritage Site, and to really enable visitors to emotionally connect with the story of the landscape and the people who were buried here. We started working with the National Trust. We realized that there were the usual challenges of an outdated and tired property, but it was also more than that. People came to Sutton Hoo expecting to see gold and to see a ship. But Edith Pretty donated the finds to the British Museum, and the ship has long since been filled in. So unfortunately, they left having seen neither. What the National Trust did have was the burial site itself. However, the low-lying mounds in an unassuming field often felt quite underwhelming. We felt from very early on that the landscape was the Trust's biggest asset. And so we worked closely with them to craft an experience that made use of the long views and the elevation changes to tell the story. The key to understanding Sutton Hoo is the visual connection between the River Deben and the burial ground. Once you have this understanding, you can start to imagine the sheer Herculean effort it would have taken to drag a sizable ship from the river to the burial ground. And once you understand that, you can start to appreciate that this ritual, which may have included thousands of people, was a really significant moment in the Anglo-Saxon world. The challenge, however, was that in the intervening centuries, the landscape has been used in a variety of ways which hinder this simple visual understanding. Our approach to the site as a whole was to break down this visitor experience and then build it back up, building a journey of discovery which climaxes in the reveal of the burial site and its connection to the water. The journey starts with some simple interventions and a welcome space. We used archaeological drawings stenciled onto the wall to give a tease of what is to come, but to remain fairly abstract in the first-time visitor's mind. From here, you enter onto a courtyard where we designed a one-to-one model of the ship. The sculpture remains abstract enough not to be confused with the actual ship, but gives a sense of the scale of the ship and imprints this on the visitor's memory for later in the journey. Continuing this language of archaeological drawing, we etched into a concrete panel within the ship the burial chamber as it was found in 1939. A new patinated steel entrance to one of the existing buildings allowed the existing buildings to work in a slightly different way as a larger shop and cafe space. And from here, we encourage the visitor through models, drawings, and gentle landscaping to make their way to Tranmere House, a former home of Edith Pretty. Here, visitors learn of the excitement of the 1930s dig within the setting of the home. We design furniture and a multimedia experience to tell this story. With the knowledge of what was found, we now guide the visitor out into the landscape and encourage them to imagine that they are walking in the footsteps of Anglo-Saxons. A pathway meanders through the Hoos, transitioning in design to suit the requirements of building in a scheduled monument. Pause points within the landscape encourage people to take a moment to stop, read, even to sit. These were carefully planned to capture the exact views which would help build the story of the ship drag in the visitor's mind. The route was carefully choreographed through countless workshops with a range of stakeholders. It brings the visitor as deep into the valley as possible within the confines of the property, therefore ensuring that the visitor experiences some of the effort required to drag the ship from the river to the top of the Hoo. The final part of the walk brings the visitor up through the woods and to the foot of the viewing tower. From here, we guide the visitor to an elevated and accessible position where the burial site can be viewed as a whole and it can be interpreted. We then encourage visitors to climb up higher through the tower. At the peak, the visitor is treated to a never before seen view of the burial ground at an elevation where it's possible to make out the dip of the ship. And then a view back to the river, therefore finally restoring this connection between water and grave, and consequently restoring this emotional connection with the seafaring Anglo-Saxons. Building in such a historically significant site came with its challenges. We worked closely with Historic England, who were very supportive of what we were trying to achieve. Working with engineers, Price and Myers, we ensured that the absolute minimum ground was disturbed. Despite archaeologically neutral ground being available, and by that I mean ground that had already been excavated and was therefore deemed low risk, we instead chose to explore all options for the positioning of the viewing tower. We thoroughly tested the positions through situating a cherry picker at multiple points and analysing the view to and from this position. The position we chose made the most sense due to the optimum view to the ship burial, but also because of its position within an existing clearing, therefore enabling it to have minimal visual impact on the surrounding landscape. The form and material palette of the tower work with the materials used across the site, marrying the series of interventions together as one family. The slender core of the tower was designed so that its silhouette is as slim as possible, and the unsealed charred larch skin works to blend the structure into the surrounding landscape. The final leg of the journey takes the visitor back across the brow of the valley. We pass the ship sculpture once again, and then arrive at the exhibition hall, where we tell in detail the story of the burial and of Anglo-Saxon life. Continuing the drawn language, at the heart of the exhibition is another etched concrete drawing of the burial chamber, this time as it was at the point of burial, and therefore completing the story and the journey. Thank you.